former detransitioner Ky Schevers on rebuilding her life after falling for cult-like TERFs. I don't think this is the same person we were talking about last week, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It is the same person. This was a little bit more of the story from their point of view. Last week we were doing more of a general, these are the facts, here's what's been happening, but this is actually coming from Ky. I think it's kind of curious and interesting to read about that experience. First of all, she uses she, her pronouns, but she identifies as transmasculine, gender queer. And at 20, she began taking testosterone after coming out as a trans man. She realized that her gender wasn't binary, though. So she began to look for more help. And what she discovered, according to her own words, she turned to online forums. And in her seeking out, she recognizes that she had doubts about her own experience, and she was left in a psychologically vulnerable space. She then says that in that state, she was approached by individuals who had been reading some of her content and had also been reading about detransition. And so there was sort of this sense of camaraderie that was built between these individuals who were basically, opposed to the idea of transgender as a status of people, as an authentic identity of people, but instead saw it as some form of psychological trauma or internalized issues that really just manifested in this sense of insecurity. So Ky began to buy into this understanding that this wasn't really a sense of being trans, but it was more of an internalized misogyny source. And as she continue to go down that path, she realized that she was being held up as an example, sometimes without her permission or her input. And one particularly powerful episode for her was her being featured in an anti-trans book when Harry Became Sally, responding to the transgender moment, written by a religious scholar, Ryan Anderson. This right-wing Christian had turned around and used the things that she had said in online forums and in very specific gatherings and incorporated that into his writing and saying, here's this person who detransitioned, therefore, this obviously is not a legitimate identity to be experienced. But that book helped her realize that radical feminism and the far right had climbed into bed together. And when she realized that the far right and radical feminism were essentially doing the same work, she knew that she had made a mistake. Because she thought that feminism was about fighting the patriarchy, dismantling it, but instead what she found out was that feminists, radical feminists, were joining with far right representatives, whether it be religious or secular, to go after trans people. And that's when she knew she could not do that anymore. It's really kind of an interesting story. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that as it goes on.